Hi, welcome to today's video. This is a quick rundown of all the middle grade books that I own. There are not very many, I'll tell you now. I decided to do this video because over the last few days I've seen quite a few videos on my YouTube feed of people doing middle grade bookshelf tours, middle grade recommendations, and talking about the middle grade readathon happening next month. And I just thought, do you know what? I'm going to get in on that action. It sounds fun. So Krista from Books and Jams, I'll link it up here somewhere. She is hosting this readathon again this year. And yeah, I know right from the beginning, I am not going to be reading middle grade the whole month, which is how long the readathon runs for. And I'm also probably not going to complete all of the prompts. There's only 5, but still, I'm probably not going to read 5 middle grades in March, just because I still have a number of arcs outstanding and they're not middle grade arcs. So I'm going to squeeze a few in as and where I can. And I only own 11 middle grade books total. And 4 of those are part of a series or part of 2 separate series. And so I've not got a massive range to choose from. However, the ones that I can choose from, I'm already looking at them going, I have no idea which to pick at all, because I only pick up middle grade. I only pick up middle grade if it's something that really grabs my attention or is something different to bog standard books. So they all sound super interesting. I have no idea what I'm going to read yet, but I don't know if I'm going to figure it out beforehand or mood read or just close my eyes and pick at random. I don't know. Right, let's get going. So I have got City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This was gifted to me by Lauren, who hosted the Horror-a-thon Christmas edition, and I won one of the prizes, and she chose some books off my wish list. This was one of them. This follows a girl called Cass. She is able to draw back the veil and speak to spirits and see spirits. She goes on a trip to Edinburgh in Scotland, where her parents are filming some kind of like haunted house type documentary thing, and Cass is obviously plunged into an even bigger paranormal world than she's used to. She then meets another girl who has very similar or the same skills, I guess you would call them, or abilities, and she quickly realizes that she's got a lot to learn about her skills and also how dangerous the ghostly realm or the spirit world can be. This sounds really great. I've had it on my TBR for a while and I do really want to read it, but I also really want to read all the other ones. Then we have got The Bubble Boy by Stuart Foster. I just randomly picked this up in a charity shop. It sounded really good. It's about an 11-year-old boy called Joe. He's got some kind of medical condition that means he's very vulnerable to germs and becoming extremely unwell. So he lives in an isolated room in the hospital, like full time. He has to have very minimal visitors, speaks to people through the glass windows and you know, stuff like that. And he is basically your everyday superhero who is battling an unseen, horrible illness. And it says that somebody new enters into his world. I think there's a little mention of another boy. So maybe it's like somebody who wants to be his friend, and then his whole world changes big time. So yeah, that sounds really cute. Apparently it's quite emotional. Then we've got another that I've picked up in a charity shop, Freak the Mighty by Rodman Philbrick. This is about 2 boys who you would never ever think that they would become friends at all. So Max is like a really tall, solid built boy who seems to be viewed as like he's quite scary and quite intimidating to his peers, even though I don't think he is that kind of person. It's just based on his looks. And then you've got another boy called Kevin, who is used to being bullied for his small size and the fact that it says he's a crippled kid. So I have got to assume from that he is in a wheelchair or something like that. And it's about these two boys who develop a great friendship and stick together through everything that's thrown at them. So that sounds really cute. It sounds like it's going to deal with bullying as well. And we've got Boo by Neil Smith. Somebody, and for the life of me I can't remember who, did a review of this on Instagram a while back, probably middle of last year. And it's just sounded really, really good. And I immediately went onto Amazon and bought it, and then put it in the pile and never actually got round to it because that's what I seem to do. Right, so we've got Oliver, who is nicknamed Boo. He is in 8th grade, and one day he wakes up in heaven. He thinks that he's died of a heart defect whilst he was at school, but he soon discovers that actually he is in a part of heaven that's reserved for 13-year-old boys who are gommers. Gommers is like a slang term they use for children who have been murdered. So then he teams up with another boy there called Johnny, and they kind of set out to find out what actually happened and who the killer was. And that storyline sort of reminds me a little bit of a book that I read last year called My Final Breath by Paige Darth. And I did not enjoy that in the slightest. It was written really badly, and it was just weird storylines that just didn't make any sense. So I'm really, really reserved about how I feel about this book. Should I read it and give it a chance? I don't know. I mean, I own it, so hopefully I'll read it at some point. But then the next two books are Nevermoor, The Trials of Morrigan Crow, and Wondersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow. I have only read Nevermoor, and I absolutely loved it. I really, really enjoyed this. So it follows Morrigan Crow, who is fated to die on her 11th birthday, and she's cursed, and everybody around her kind of suffers because of that curse. So if Morrigan looks at somebody a funny way, then they might have something bad happen to them, or she's at least blamed for those things because she's a cursed child. And she is just like, you know what, I'm going to die on my 11th birthday, my family don't care about me. However, she is suddenly, on that birthday, whisked away by a man called Jupiter North. And he takes her to a secret city called Nevermoor. And there, it's kind of like a magical world. So she discovers there is something called the Wondrous Society. And she ends up being put in trials to earn a place at the Wondrous Society. So having read Nevermoor, I really, really, really want to read Wondersmith. And then the third one came out, was it like last October sometime, I think, called Hollowpox. I don't own that one yet though, but I would really like to get onto the second one of these. How cool is that? Blue sprayed edges. And this one follows Morrigan as she's part of the Nevermoor world, or Nevermoor City, and people are being poisoned and people are just vanishing, and she must somehow get dragged into that. So it does sound like it's going to be a really, really great sequel. And the next two are, they're not a series, they're not linked in any way, but they are the same author. So we've got The Boy at the Back of the Class and The Star Outside My Window by Anjali Q. Rauf. So I'll tell you about The Boy at the Back of the Class first. This, from what I have heard, it's told from the perspective of another child in the class. And they, one day, another boy arrives in the class, he sits at the back, he looks a bit shabby, you know, like he's got slightly ripped backpack and looks like he's wearing clothes that are a little bit too big for him, and he doesn't speak any English at all. And so the other child, whose point of view it's written from, he gets like very curious as to what on earth is going on with this child. Why does he not even speak English, but he lives here, he goes to school here? And so it turns out that the boy at the back of the class is actually a refugee. And when the other children learn about what this boy has gone through and the circumstances of how he's ended up in the UK. They go to extraordinary lengths to become his friend, and that just sounds amazing. And it just sounds like it's one of those books that's going to be quite emotional, and it's one of those books that I'd love my 11-year-old son to read, and maybe the other one when he's a little older, just to learn about accepting people and not to take people at face value as in the way they look, and not to discriminate against other people, because you never know what they've gone through in life. Then The Star Outside My Window sounds like another heartbreaking read. It follows a girl called Anaya and her little brother. They lose their mum, the mum dies, and the siblings end up in foster care. However, Anaya is totally crazy about stars and the solar system and things like that. She wants to be like an astronomer when she grows up, and she develops this belief that her mum has actually turned into one of the stars, that she hasn't actually just like kind of disappeared from the world. And so her and her little brother go on this kind of adventure to try and track down which star it is and to find their mum again. And it just sounds really, really emotional, to be honest. And again, it's another one of those that I would like my children to read to get a better understanding of what some children go through in their lives. Then the last physical middle grade that I own is Chinese Cinderella by Adeline Yen Ma. This author also wrote Falling Leaves, which is an adult autobiography or biography, memoir, whatever you want to call it. And they are the same story, just that obviously this is written at middle grade level. And basically it tells the story of Adeline when she was young. She suffered from quite cruel mistreatment by her family. They didn't care for her, they didn't respect her, they didn't pay her any attention, and she had, you know, an evil stepmother just like Cinderella had, and she was just treated like a servant a lot of the times. And this is kind of like her story of what she went through, and learning to accept herself, learning to build some kind of self-esteem and respect herself, even though she's been kind of taught for many years that she is worthless. And I actually owned both. I owned the adult version and this one, and I've just never read either of them, but it sounds like it's going to be again another emotional read. Why do I do this to myself? The last two middle grade books that I own are ones that I own on my Kindle, and they are Small Spaces and Dead Voices by Catherine Arden. And so Small Spaces is about a girl who has suffered a loss. She then gets caught up in the world of books, you know, like it just kind of gives her a place to escape from all of the stuff that's going on in her life. And she sees like this old woman trying to throw a book into the river. And she doesn't even think twice, she just grabs the book and rescues it. But when she's reading it later, it's got some quite spooky stories in about somebody called the Smiling Man who grants people's wishes, but for like really ultimate prices. And she doesn't think much of it until the next day she goes on a class trip to somewhere that's got a bit of a spooky background. And on the way home, the school bus breaks down, the teachers go off to try and find help, and whilst the children are still left on the bus, the bus driver becomes really creepy and starts saying things like, "We need to get out of here before they come for the rest of you." And then things just get even creepier because Ollie wears a digital watch, and suddenly the word "run" pops up on the screen. And then everything just kind of starts freaking out. And if you can hear a little pitter-pattering, it's our little dog has come to visit and see what I'm doing. And come on. She's a little scruff, ain't you? She desperately needs to go to the groomers. Yeah. Right, so you do, don't you? You need a haircut and a bath and your nails clipped. So yeah, I really want to read that. I've had it on my Kindle for a while and just not got round to it. And then I also bought Dead Spaces, which is the sequel, and I have no idea what that's about. I just wanted it because the first one sounded great. So yeah, that's all the middle grade books I own. So I will be choosing hopefully at least 2 or 3 out of those to get through in March, and then I can say that I've participated in middle grade March. So thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below if you have read any of these, if you think there's one that I should definitely go for. Just let me know, because I have no clue right now. And yeah, I will see you all shortly with another video. Bye.